When you're on the go and it's time to refresh your energy, grab an ice-cold Celsius, where 0 sugar, 7 essential vitamins, and proven ingredients meet pure refreshment. Unlike traditional energy drinks, each sip of Celsius is a perfect balance of flavor and function. So whether you're hitting the gym, the office, or your next adventure, grab a Celsius at your local retailer or visit Celsius.com to learn more.
Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and each week I'm joined by a panel of guests to discuss all things fandom and pop culture, primarily from a female perspective. You'll find everything from fanfic, to cosplay, to Schitt's Creek, to Supernatural, and everything in between. So put on your favorite piece of fandom merch, set aside that fanfic that you're writing about your OTP, and sit back and enjoy this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to It's a Fandom Thing. I'm your host, Erin Marlowe, and on this episode, we are kicking off Pride Month by creating a fun little playlist for everybody. We are going to be mentioning some of what we consider essential or ones we love or even underrated LGBTQIA plus songs. Songs to celebrate Pride Month, songs to celebrate Pride Year, since we should be celebrating this year-round. But I just thought this would be a fun, light way to kick off the month. We are going to be doing music next week as well, and I will give you that episode at the end and then tell you also the rest of our lineup for this month. But joining me on this episode, and I'm so glad to have her back. She was on our Pop Culture and Fandom News episode for this week. First time on one of our podcast episodes. She was on our marathon streaming event, showing trivia genius.
Hey,
Hi,
I'm really
Ashleigh.
good at pub quizzes, I promise. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me back, Erin.
You're welcome. Hey, you can come back for our horror trivia event, one of those. We will definitely schedule one because usually they're at night, but I want to schedule one so you can come on and, you know, that you'll probably kick butt.
Listen, it's fine. If I have to be up at stupid o'clock in the morning for the chance to redeem myself, I may have to push through it.
So I'm so happy to have you joining me, and I can't wait to hear some of the songs that you have selected. But I did want to ask, because I don't even know if there is a correct response to this question. For you, is there a recipe or something essential for you that makes a good Pride song?
I had a thought about this when I was just have a little prep, and there were two things that I came to the conclusion for. The first, and I'm being really broad about this, is it has to be uplifting. Doesn't have to be happy, doesn't have to necessarily be positive, but it's got to have a certain quality where it could be played either in a bar, or if you're not into bars, in the street, in a house, wherever, where you're with your community and everybody is vibing with the song. Can't be the sort of thing that's a little too subdued or down tempo to the point where really it's better for you to just listen to yourself with headphones, because then it's not really, it's not a song to share with others, which doesn't mean it's a bad song. It just means it's probably not going to end up with a lot of Pride playlists. And the second thing was there's got to be a certain, and I use the phrase in my notes, je ne sais quoi. You could say a certain special sauce. And what I mean by that is very nebulous, but I thought of a song that doesn't have it, that should be a Pride song, but isn't. And that's Same Love by Macklemore. No disrespect to Macklemore. I really respect how he stands 10 toes down on a lot of social issues and has done for ages. He's also a Mariners fan. Go Tridents. But I'm sorry, man. Same Love is just, it just doesn't have it. Doesn't have the sauce. Whatever thing makes a song like, well, we'll get to those songs that are on the list. Whatever makes them that, it doesn't have. And it's more easy to tell by the absence of the special sauce than the presence of the special sauce, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, I like the way you describe. No, I like the way you described that perfectly. I don't think I could at all add much to that, because I think that's the perfect way to say it, especially uplifting. And like you said, like there's going to be a song I'm going to mention that is, the tempo isn't uplifting, but the message is uplifting. And I think that is important because, too often in media and in television, and, we've talked about, the bury your gays trope and everything like that. So too often media focuses either on stereotypes or on the tragedy. So if you can have songs that are not focused on the tragedies or being like, because also I think it gives young people, importantly, hope and, that it is okay to be you and giving you hope in yourself and giving you hope in coming out. Where I think when media is all negative, it kind of can convey a message that, well, it's great, but your life is going to suck. And that's just not a great message to get across. So I like that it has to be that uplifting in its message, not necessarily in its tone. Because I do think sometimes, especially when you're looking at playlists that people have created, a lot of what you see is just very dance, like a lot of dance songs. And I understand that. A lot of the songs I have on here are songs that you want to dance to. But I do think you can also find songs that work that aren't necessarily following a dance beat or ones that you would go out to a club and
I
dance
think the
to.
phrase I would use would be vibe. You don't, because for me, if it's a Pride song, if you're in the car on the way to the event and you're with your group, your tribe, whoever you're with, and the song's playing, if you're all connecting with it, you don't have to be dancing. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a happy song. It can be a sad song, but if you're all in that same kind of understanding, then that makes it good for the Pride oeuvre, gives it that community feeling. And I got some on my list later that we'll get to, which I think are more in that category of things.
No, that I like that. And that makes sense because I think, some of the songs that people think of and some of the songs that'll be on my list aren't outright like songs where people are like, yeah, that is definitely like on the surface, the person who wrote it might not have been thinking, oh, this is going to be a Pride song down the line. And then it got, people connected to it in that way. And I think that's the thing about music is people find different connections to different songs. And sometimes the songs that are so upfront may not be the ones that you're connecting to because they might be missing, like you said, that essential sauce or that essential thing that makes them work. So, yeah. Okay, so I do want to start with, and I know this can be classified as so many different time periods in music, but do you have 3 favorites that would be classified maybe as classic Pride songs?
Yeah, classic. I wanted to go for not necessarily just disco, but this is all disco. Songs from the classic period of, at least in the West, when gay rights, as it was termed then, LGBT rights as we say now, LGBTQ plus rights, was becoming a prominent movement, and you were starting getting the songs. The first entrance on my list of my 3 is The Village People. It's not YMCA, though, because I prefer In the Navy and Macho Man in kind of tied spot. Those songs are just so... Is silly the right word? They're irreverent. They're fun. It's just, when it comes on, you can't help but if you're at some event just belting it out, you want to be a macho man. It doesn't matter what your identity is. You want to be a macho man working out that body because it's just it's fun. That's just the word for it. And then the second one I have is It's Raining Men by the Weather Girls, and that to me that's a little later. I think that was the 80s, around the 70s, but that's another very classic example of a song. It's almost a novelty song, really. I don't know. There's a great series on YouTube called One Hit Wonderland. I don't know if you've seen any episodes of that, where the YouTuber goes into one hit wonders, what they were like before the hit, during, and then after, how their careers went. And this is one where the Weather Girls and the song It's Raining Men, there's not a lot of mileage you get out of that gimmick after that song. But you only need the one when it's going to be that enduring.
Yeah.
And then finally, I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor, which is one where, as you were saying, wasn't intended as a Pride song. None of those were, really, I don't think, at least initially. But they all were very quickly latched onto, either because of their message. In the case of I Will Survive, it's very obvious what the message is for a community that at the time, was under attack, is under attack. That message of, I don't need you. We got ourselves. We got each other. We will survive. It's a very powerful message delivered in a way that is a perfect dance beat. So it works on every level.
Mm-hmm. Great selections. And it's amazing because A lot of those were like in backups, but none of those are on my list of the 3, which I love that though, because there are so many ones you could choose. And I do think disco in general, you can find so many songs that will work for this. So yeah, loved those. And it is true. Not like, I don't think, I Will Survive was never really, that wasn't the intent. The intent, of course, was like the breakup but everybody has their interpretations of art, and it has become such an anthem for so much more than that, and their survival of that. And yeah, and it's Raining Men. There's, I love the version that starts in Promising Young Woman. There's like a different kind of version of that song in that movie, but that's what I think of now. That's a totally different kind of area, but still. Okay, well, the first one that I selected, and a lot of people mentioned this with listeners talking, is, of course, I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross. This is kind of, I think, top essential songs when you Google, when you look at any playlist, when you ask anybody, this is one of the first ones that will come up, of course. And this is one of those that is such a celebration and such a joyful song, and makes you want to dance, makes you just feel hopeful and happy and everything. And it's got all the elements, I think, that we were talking about in the beginning of what it makes for a good Pride song. And I think you can find it definitely in this. Yeah. And we talked a little bit about this song. And of course, we talked about Diana Ross in general earlier this year in February. Tiff and I talked about Diana Ross. So if you want to hear more about that, go back and listen to that episode if you haven't listened to it already. And then these were all so hard for me, I want to say. I narrow it down to 3, and I know everybody wants to kill me for that. And then I always want to, I always hate myself for it too. But I chose I Want to Break Free by Queen. And I think also the video kind of fits with it too. And of course, Freddie Mercury, and just the legend of Freddie Mercury, and how incredible Freddie Mercury was, and what an icon he has become and was back then. But I think he's even a bigger icon now than even back when he was alive. And this is another one that fits that formula, where I think it is very happy in a way of like celebrating, I am going to be happy. I am going to be who I want to be. I'm going to break out of any societal norms, is how I kind of view it, and be who I want to be and be myself. And I want to do that, and I'm going to do that. And I think the tempo of the song fits. It's got a very bouncy beat to it. I love Freddie Mercury's voice, and I just think it's a really, really great song that I think has become, over the years, more of a classic Pride song than I think maybe it was initially, or even like 10 years ago. I think some of these songs have become more of that as time has gone by. And then because, and we talked about the movie Rocket Man last year as part of my birthday month, because everybody knows I'm obsessed with that movie. But I'm Still Standing by Elton John. Sometimes he gets that crotchety old man thing going. And sometimes I have issues with him. But this song, I think, can work on so many different levels. Of course, on, recovery from addiction as well. But I think it just really works with this as far as like, society, the world as a whole can try and beat you down, but I'm still standing. I'm still going to make it, kind of like with the I Will Survive, kind of following along that same wavelength. I think everybody can kind of find meaning in this song. And I think this is another one that has become a classic and didn't become a classic until I think maybe a few years ago. And I think actually the movie Rocket Man made a lot of these become more of a classic than they were for Elton John. Not saying, Elton John was huge and very popular. Not saying that movie made him huge and popular, but I think it found a new audience and new people to discover his music.
No, that was one on my short list for this category, was I'm Still Standing. And the crotchety old man thing, I think, is almost what kept it off for me, but it is an absolute banger. It's just, such a good song. Good choice.
Thank you. Yeah. And I love Taron Egerton singing it too. I think he did such a fantastic job in that movie anyway. And I love how they basically recreated the video at the end. Like they basically did shot by shot.
That was good. I really
video.
like that. Yeah. It's very well done.
Yeah. So you can go back and listen to us talk about Rocket Man and how Taron Egerton was robbed. Robbed.
Right. Yeah. All of the attention that went to Bohemian Rhapsody should have gone to Rocket Man.
Exactly. Yeah, we say that a lot in that episode. Okay, well, we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to talk about 3 of our essentials that we think everyone should listen to, and you can classify that however you want to, Ashleigh. I don't know how you did for this, but we will be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
Okay, so Ashleigh, what are 3 of your essentials that you think like everyone should listen to?
So for essentials, I wanted to really delineate between essentials and underrated. For underrated, I've picked the ones that are my actual personal favorites, but wouldn't necessarily be everybody's cup of tea. For this, I wanted to think, what's something that's not like a classic, it's more modern, more contemporary, but really ought to be, if you're making a Pride playlist, it ought to be on. Number 1, and maybe this is moving towards the classic category, but Born This Way by Lady Gaga. When that song came out, it got a lot of flack for not being a perfect song, and maybe it isn't, but I have so much respect for Lady Gaga in terms of her position as a queer icon, especially with that interview she did with Anderson Cooper on 60 Minutes, where he just straight up asked her, hey, so what about all the rumors that you're trans? And she was like, would that be so awful? And she just completely turned it around. Icon moment forever. So Born This Way for me, as a Pride song, ticks a lot of boxes. I think it does have that special sauce, so it's going on my essentials list. 2 on my essentials list, Good Luck Babe by Chappell Roan. We had to have some Chappell Roan on this list. How can you not? It is so great to see, a queer artist being not just popular kind of after the fact, in the sense of with Freddie Mercury, you have people who speculated or understood at the time. He kept his personal life quite private until towards the end. Chappell Roan is openly proud of who she is and is the biggest artist in the world, I think, or definitely in contention for that number 1 spot. So you have to have something. A lot of people are going to put Pink Pony Club on the list. That's definitely a song where that's got outreach. You're seeing a lot of straight people singing that song in the bars, which is great to see. But for me, Good Luck Babe is a bit more has more to it, has more body. It's a bit more developed than Pink Pony Club, just as a song, kind of on a musical level. But that's just my personal preference. Then number 3, this could have gone on the classics list as well, so it's a little bit older, but I went for Vogue by Madonna, just because it fits with being a Pride song, basically. And it's an interesting one where how that song kind of came about. That art form, voguing, Madonna, I think has sort of been post hoc suggested that she sort of appropriated a bit, but I do know, at least in terms of what I have heard anecdotally about the making of that music video, at least, she had those Vogue artists come and tell her how to do it. She went and was like, teach me, let me learn how to actually do this properly and give enough respect to the art form. And now voguing is a lot more, I'm not going to say it's mainstream, it's still pretty obscure, but it's more mainstream than it was. So that's a song that kind of has that enduring quality, not least because the roots of a lot of modern dance come from that scene. And it's something where the song has layers to it in that sense. So those are the 3 essential ones I picked. I wanted to go a bit more modern with my essential picks.
Great picks, yeah. Born This Way was one of my alternates in this one because I didn't know if it would be selected. And I do agree. I'm much more of a Lady Gaga fan than a Madonna fan. As people may or may not know, I'm not really big on Madonna. But that does not negate the fact that, she has had a huge impact. And I do think that song in particular, Vogue in particular, is one of the essential ones, no matter what. And I do love that you chose a different Chappell Rowan song, because that will be mentioned, not by me, but it will be mentioned, Pink Pony Club, because that was one of the ones submitted, which is not at all saying that's bad, because it is a great song. But yeah, I do like that sometimes you can find other ones that people aren't talking about as much by the same artists, which is awesome. And yeah, our Lady Gaga episode, by the way, not to use this episode to just promo all our past episodes.
Hey, smoke 'em if you got them.
Yeah. Our Lady Gaga episode is in our top 10 most popular episodes we've ever done. So if you haven't listened to it, you can go back and listen to that one. I'm still bummed that when we recorded that, I was recovering from COVID. And so I was so sick. So I've always been like, we should do a do-over of that. And we also did an episode talking about A Star is Born. So we did a whole episode just talking about that movie too.
She had such chops as a musical artist beyond just like a lot of people, especially in the early days, saw just the like monster shtick. But her stuff, if you listen to what she did with Tony Bennett, the like classic show tunes, she has such range.
Oh, she does. She's a fantastic actress. She's so, so talented, just incredibly talented. And the reason I've always liked her more, and I only say it because Madonna and her are compared all the time, because she always comes off to me as more genuine. It just comes off very real to me, where I don't always get that from Madonna. And I know people get upset when I put down Madonna, but I just think of Lady Gaga as being more sincere and more real and more talented, frankly. And yeah, she's incredible. She's an incredible talent. And I'm really grateful that we still have her around and she's still producing amazing music. So yeah, I'd love to see her in concert. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but have you seen?
No, I have not. That's one of those ones where opportunity and price as well. But one day, perhaps, we'll see.
Yeah, price is a big thing. Yeah, I kind of went my essentials kind of the same way that you did. In a way, one of these on here could easily go into the underrated, because I don't think outside of a particular fandom, I don't think this song gets talked about enough. And I'll mention that one last. So first up is Freedom 90 by George Michael. I think there's a lot of George Michael songs you could pick. This one to me is the most essential in his category, which is in his catalog, which is saying a lot, because I do think his discography is filled with songs that you could easily put in here. But for me, it just, again, it kind of calls back to, and this easily could have gone into classics as well, but this kind of calls back to some of the themes and some of the classic songs that we both picked. It has that joy and that feeling of pride and hope and celebrating who you are and celebrating being true to who you are and finding freedom, and finally finding freedom and breaking free of whatever it was that was holding you back from being your true authentic self. And that's what I also find in this. And I think the video is one of those classic great, videos from that time period. And George Michael was just such an incredible artist. And there's a great documentary about him too that I recommend everybody watch. But, that was a great loss when we lost him to music and to the world, frankly. So I had to mention one of his, and that was just the first one that came to my head. But really, I think a lot of George Michael songs and Wham songs too could fit this. And then this is the more slowed down, quieter song, and that's True Colors by Cyndi Lauper. And I just found out Cyndi Lauper is going to be in Colorado this month or somewhere, and I'm like, maybe I can see her. Cyndi Lauper to me is an icon in so many different ways. She's an icon for, growing up and as a young kid and as a young girl, and seeing someone being, not quote unquote normal in the way they were dressing. And, girls just want to have fun. Yes, that has become like this poppy song that I think some people dismiss. But there's a lot to that song, actually, if you really look at it a little bit deeper. And so I think, she wrote this song a lot for her sister when her sister came out. But I think this song and any song in her catalog pretty much has an undercurrent of so much love and respect. And I think that's kind of what Cyndi Lauper radiates in her music, is this sense of love and care and like found family, if that makes sense as well. And so I just really had to include this one for that reason, because I just think she's a great icon as well. I know I keep using the word icon, get overused, but I think that's true for her. And I think True Colors could also go in the classics. I think a lot of these songs could just fit into different categories for sure. And then lastly, and I think the Queer as Folk fandom, and of course we celebrate Queer as Folk every year on this podcast, the Queer as Folk fandom, the US version, are very familiar with this song, but I don't know how. I rarely see it make lists or be on playlists, but the song Proud by Heather Small. And, it's got the line, "What have you done today to make yourself feel proud?" And it plays in the season 1 series premiere for Queer as Folk, the US version. So it's always been kind of associated with that show. But I think this song, not just because of the title, but I think it is a hopeful, upbeat song, but it's also calling on people to really embrace doing something as well, and not just like celebrating pride, but actually celebrating pride. That makes sense. And actually being active and doing something. And I think that's what this song does as well. And it starts out in kind of a low beat, low register, and then it kind of gets up a little bit more and turns into a dance song. And I also could easily put this in underrated, because I do think in some respects it's underrated outside of that fandom. So those are my 3.
Yeah, all I would say pretty strong. I hadn't heard that last one, but it was interesting you mentioned Queer as Folk, and I was almost about to say, do you mean the American version or the British version? But yeah, no, especially True Colors. I was almost going to say like a lot of Cyndi Lauper could really find its way onto a Pride playlist. That one in particular has good resonance with me because it's a friend of mine's favorite karaoke song.
It's a good karaoke song. It's funny, Ashleigh, I will admit, I said the US version of Queer as Folk because you were on, because I was like, you're going to wonder which one, because I figure people that have been on here, and since we talk about Queer as Folk every year during this time, that's my all-time favorite show. And it happens to be that it was popular, the episodes were popular. So I'm like, we're going to do this every year. So we celebrate the show every year. So I usually don't delineate, but I should get better about that. But I was like, I'm definitely going to do that now.
Yeah. I make you specify every time there's a remake of a show, which happens quite often, apparently.
Yes.
At least after The Office, it did. They were reaching for. Doesn't always work. I know they tried to make an American version of Red Dwarf. That one didn't land, but oh well.
Oh, yeah. That's right. They did. Okay. Well, now we're going to go to our underrated. So, Ashleigh, what are 3 underrated songs?
Okay. For underrated, I went for stuff that I thought was going to be from genres that are not typical for Pride playlists. And I say not typical. Some of these you'll think, oh, maybe I have heard that one before. But if we run down, at least if I run down my list, top 3 classic Pride songs: Disco Beat, Disco Beat, Disco Beat. Essential Pride songs: Disco Beat, Disco Beat, Disco Beat. Well, not Good Luck Babe, not really, but it's the other 2. Definitely, it's a 4 on the floor kind of rhythm for those. Pretty standard. So, first off the bat, now, when I was looking at like songs on Pride playlists, one of my favorite ever musical artists, a person who is deeply important, their work is deeply important to me, is a woman called Laura Jane Grace from a band called Against Me. Punk band, folk punk originally, but they've migrated to a bunch of other different styles over the years. And she came out as trans, I think, in 2012 and 2014, dropped the album Transgender Dysphoria Blues, which for punk has had a lot of queer and trans people in it for a long time, but it was still pretty landmark, pretty watershed in terms of being an album that is about the trans experience. The song that is often used from that one is True Trans Soul Rebel. That's a bit more like you would find on a traditional Pride playlist. I wanted to go for a song called Black Me Out, which is it's not angry, it's cathartic. It's a big release kind of song. It's a very shouty kind of song, but it is a song that it ends with the line, full body high, I'm never coming down, black me out, which is basically like, you brackets person this song is addressed to, have been giving me shit for so long. I don't care. I don't care anymore. I'm doing my own thing. I'm living my own life. And it's just such a great punk song. If you're into punk, Against Me in general, check them out. But that song deserves a spot on any Pride playlist, I think. Number 2, off the back, adjacent genre, Bikini Kill and their song Rebel Girl. Now, Riot Girl is a genre that's been around for ages, since the 90s. And it does appear on Pride playlists. So this is one where, okay, this might appear on other playlists. But equally, that's my kind of like, this is the kind of music I like. I'm a big punk fan. So Riot Girl is like an adjacent genre, and grunge is kind of my thing as well. Very like energetic, very driving. And it's like queerness in a way that's like not mainstream. It's not like the exact kind of very sort of manicured, to use a phrase, sort of boxed version that you might find on a Pride float, which is not to say that doesn't have a place, but this is more like, it's more organic, it's more garage, it's more like personal in that sense, I think. So Rebel Girl is a good pick that I'm putting on. And then the final one, which is the most rogue of all of them, is the song Cowboys Are Frequently Secretly Fond of Each Other by Willie Nelson. And this is one where this is good for me, because I'm not a huge country person, but I do know enough. I'm enough of a nut of a Philistine to know that Willie Nelson is country royalty / godhood. He is like one of the people in country, at least in terms of for the old. Mm-hmm. And this song, when he did release this, I think it was like the late 90s or the early 2000s or something, was not a time at which this would have been beneficial for his career to do. He just did it because he's that kind of a person. He's always been quite a progressive person, just as himself. And the music video for this is amazing. It's him and Burt Reynolds trying to direct a bunch of cowboys into doing a very homoerotic line dance. And the song it's just, it falls into the category of it being fun. But again, it's a genre that you don't hear on a lot of Pride lists. I know we have like Orville Peck now and stuff, and like a bit more representation in country, but especially again for its time and for it being Willie Nelson, going out on a limb and being like, I want to do this song. I don't care what like a big chunk of my audience might say or might think. I want to do this. I want to do it my way. I have a lot of respect for that. So those are my 3 underrated ones that I don't think will appear on many Pride playlists. Probably will appear on some to varying extents, but I think would be worth considering if you're putting together your Pride playlist.
Yeah, great list. And I love that you included a punk song, because I do think that's the thing, is that we do kind of, I think also when we're thinking of Pride songs, a lot of people naturally go more the disco dance route. And so I really, really appreciate that. I love that genre of music as well. And I know Erin A, shout out to Erin A, who actually was in Las Vegas for the punk festival that was going on there as well. And so I love that. I love that. And we are going to be in September, and I'll have to, when we're done, quickly give you, if you didn't see it, we are going to be talking about grunge music in September. That's what our listeners voted on for us to cover. I gave you a few genres for us to cover because September's our music month. And that was the one you picked. So we will be covering some grunge. But I loved that it wasn't all in genres that people typically think of. And I think it's important that, songs are in because it's not like, you only find gay people in this genre, that kind of stuff. And yeah, Willie Nelson is pretty remarkable. Also just doing Farm Aid for as long as he did Farm Aid, and I think it's still going on. Just all the incredible stuff he does. He's a great artist, because I think too often people think, and I'm not a big country music fan either, except for like Johnny Cash and stuff, but I think too often people do think of country music as just strictly like very conservative. And so I like that people realize, or people should realize or see that it's not always strictly conservative. Of course, had Lil Nas X as well. So you have a lot of people now. Hopefully we'll get even more representation. So thank you. Mine don't necessarily fit in like genres that you're not necessarily thinking of. So I loved that. I thought that was great. And one of them on here, people are going to argue it's not underrated, but I'm putting it on here as underrated because it's a song that I actually recently discovered, and it's a really new song. So I also struggled with wanting to put it on here, but I decided to anyway. First one I'm going to mention is the song Small Town Boy by Bronski Beat. And I think of it as underrated because I don't know if a lot of people, especially now, know this song. I've heard it used in like movies and television and stuff. So it's not like it's an unknown song, but I still don't know if people really know about this one or know about the significance of it or think of it as a pride song. But of course, it was written about someone coming out. So, and I just think this is a more somber, the beat is a lot more somber than a lot of the other ones on here. And you could say it has a more somber tone to it, but I do think there is also some hope in it as well. It is someone breaking free again. And I just think it's a great, great song. And I think there's a lot of emotion to it. And it's one of those that when I listen to it, I always hit repeat and rewind, and I listen to it a few times in a row whenever it comes on because it's part of my master, Spotify playlist. And so whenever it pops up, I always have to play it more than once. And then Girls and Boys by Blur. Now, I selected this because I think this song works on so many different levels. It's very much about sexual freedom, sexual exploration, gender fluidity. It's a lot of different things that you can take away from this song. And it's also an incredible dance song. It is so much fun to dance to this song. That was another reason I put it on here. And I think in a weird way, I don't know if you would agree with this, Ashleigh, as far as I don't know how familiar you are with Blur and their whole catalog, their whole discography, but I think this song kind of is different than a lot of the other songs they have written or done in the past. And not necessarily the words, but more like the beat to it. And I don't know if you'd agree with that. It seems to me sometimes like a different standout for them.
Yeah, it's a little different. I mean, for me, like, growing up, even though I grew up overseas, I was still British in that period of time. You heard a lot of Britpop. So it does fall into the broad strokes of the genre in terms of the conventions, but it's definitely different from something like Parklife in terms of its general like musical vibe.
Yeah, that's what I mean, is it sort of feels like they are trying something new with it. And I think it's got great lyrics and it's fun. It's a fun song. So, and I think it's underrated in this that I cannot think of a single list, at least when I was doing research just to see kind of what people would always think of as their personal essentials. I don't remember seeing this on anybody's list. So I had to give it a shout out. And then lastly, and this is a very recent song, and this is a recent discovery for me. I discovered this song, even though I knew the lines, I had never really listened to this song before. So I discovered it for this one, and I'm putting it under underrated, and I'm justifying it because I saw it on somebody else's list as underrated. And that's the song Grace Kelly by Micah. And you're shaking your head. So of course
No,
everybody knows.
I was nodding.
He's shaking, nodding it.
I saw that on lists as well. And it must be underrated because I saw it on the list. I think it was number 70 on a list of top 70 by, might have been Billboard. And I was like, oh, yeah, I suppose so. So that is a very interesting choice. But not wrong by any stretch of the imagination.
And this is one, I have been obsessed with this song this week. I have listened to this song so many times. And I do think, it is very much about not conforming to what people want you to be. I think for me, that's my takeaway on this song. And shout out to Carla, because Carla also mentioned this song. It had already been on my list, but shout out to Carla, because Carla was supposed to join us and wasn't able to. So this was one that was on her long list. She shared so many with me, and I will be giving a shout out to a lot of those, but this was on there as well. So both Carla and I think you should definitely check this out. And for us, we would add it to our Pride playlist. And it will be on the playlist that we are going to create, a public Spotify playlist for everyone that will include all the songs mentioned here. Hopefully we can get all these songs on Spotify. If not, take notes and find these songs for yourself. So I want to give you, Ashleigh, before I turn over to our last break, and then when we come back, we will shout out songs that listeners submitted. So before we go to the break, though, you could name 3 more songs if you want to, Ashleigh.
3 more songs.
Okay. In any category.
In any category. Let's go for something by David Bowie, maybe like Modern Love by David Bowie. Just because I think, I understand he's sort of fallen out of favor for pretty good reasons recently, but Bowie is still kind of a important artist, in general, especially for like queer representation. And then we already have Queen on the list. Off the top of my head, maybe something like, Relax, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, if that's not already going to be like selected on the list, just because again, that's another like very strong pick. And then for number 3, don't we have already? No, I think I have to think about it.
You have to have a think about it?
Yeah, I think that's good for now. And if I think of anything later, I'll pop up.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to read off a bunch of ones that were submitted by our listeners, by other panelists. So we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. We all have that piece. The one that's so you've basically become known for it. And if you don't yet, fashionistas, you'll find it on eBay. That Miu Miu red leather bomber, the Custo Barcelona cowboy top, or that Patagonia fleece in the 2017 colorway. All these finds are all on eBay, along with millions of more main character pieces backed by Authenticity Guarantee. eBay is the place for pre-loved and vintage fashion. eBay, things people love.
Okay, so I asked listeners and our panelists for what songs would make their list. And you sent us some great ones and a lot of them. And so first I am going to go to, and some of these have already been mentioned, but I'm still going to give them a little bit of a shout out. So from Fan Corner Creations, Chapel Rowan, they selected Pink Pony Club, but also Red Wine Supernova. Then also, Fan Corner Creations said She Likes a Boy by Nixtia. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. And then Sarah B. said Supermodel by RuPaul, Flowers and Wrecking Ball by Miley Cyrus. She also said Freedom. And then also said I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross and Born This Way by Lady Gaga. Those were all selected by multiple people submitted those songs, of course. I was
so on the fence about having any RuPaul on my list. I'm so back and forth on RuPaul just as a person. The fracking thing is not amazing. But equally, our Drag Race is like exploded. I think, there's an element of it that kind of can't be denied. And Miley as well is a good choice.
Yeah. And then let me go to the huge list that was submitted over our Discord channel. This is where the majority of these are. So Carla, since Carla wasn't able to come, let me just mention all the ones that Carla selected. You Make Me Feel by Sylvester. So that's another like kind of in the disco genre. Father Figure by George Michael. Romeo and Juliet by Indigo Girls. Constant Craving by Katie Lang. I don't know if it's Heavy Cross by Gossip or Gossip by Heavy Cross. I'm not sure, so I'm sorry, Carla. Other people might be yelling at me right now. Brandy Carlisle, Raise Hell, Little Nas X, Call Me Your Name, Boy George, The Crying Game, Scissor Sisters, Take Your Mama.
Interesting to choose that one by Scissor Sisters. Because I know people like Don't Feel Like Dancing was like the big hit, and then Let's Have a Kiki is like the sort of like pride hit. But interesting choice.
Yeah, a lot of ones that she chose, or at least some were different. But Unholy, which was on my alternates by Sam Smith and Kim Petras. And I know everyone has heard a little bit of that song. On TikTok, it became part of TikTok trends. Ricky Martin, Fibra. I should have asked her to clarify some of these just because. Elton John, I believe this is the one. Tracy Chapman, Baby Can I Hold You? And it was interesting because I loved having Tracy Chapman mentioned because I saw Tracy Chapman on a lot of lists. And I think that's another one that you wouldn't have necessarily thought of right away when you're making a Pride playlist. So I like that. Adam Lambert's What Do You Want From Me? Steve Springfield's A Brand New Me. I Do Both Jay and Jane by Larissa. And that was it from Carla. So thank you, Carla, for that long, long list. I appreciate it, especially since you weren't able to be here. And then from Tiff, Elton John and George Michael singing Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me for Live Aid. In particular, Somebody to Love from Queen. Hey, it's song from Queen Latifah. I love this that we've included Queen Latifah on here because I want to say we've included a lot of songs from particularly mostly white artists. So I appreciate that we are also getting other artists in here as well, especially Black women. Queen Latifah, Ladies First. And this is funny because this is an interesting pick, but What's Up by Four Non-Blondes. So I like that. That's a little bit different. Moth did choose Pink Pony Club. And this is another RuPaul. Sissy That Walk is the other one that Moth chose. Oh, and then also Hot to Go by Chappell Roan. I was like...
I was wondering when that was going to come.
I know. I'm surprised it didn't come before then. So those were some of the ones. A lot of people selected the same ones over and over again, so I didn't repeat those. But thank you, everybody, for submitting those. Once again, there are like hundreds that we didn't mention, of course. Did you think of the one, Ashleigh?
Not beyond the ones that then got mentioned on that list. So I think we got a pretty comprehensive cover.
Well, I do want to know, because it is time to switch over to 6 Degrees of Finn Whitrock. Did you try it? I know that this might be difficult. There is actually a very easy way to do this.
There is theoretically, but one will learn about my appearances thus far and perhaps continuing is that I don't do things by halves. So when you said, do you want to do the 6 Degrees of Finn Whitrock thing? I was like, of course I absolutely do. And I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to take any sort of a shortcut. So I spent a good half an hour because what I picked for my starting point was Lauren Jane Grace, lead singer of Against Me, and who sung one of the songs on my underrated picks. And I was like, okay, let's make this work. So I have it. Do you want me to do the...
Yes. Yeah, go for it.
I'm not sure how the format goes, but...
Yes.
So to connect to Finn Whitrock, an actor who I do know, like in the sense of when I Wikipedia'd him, I was like, oh yeah, him. So it was a little harder than Kevin Bacon, but okay. So first of all, Laura Jane Grace did the Happy Hippie Backyard Sessions, which was like acoustic sets that she did with Joan Jett and Miley Cyrus, which was very cool because it was for charity, I think, for queer youth that they did those sessions. Miley Cyrus was in as a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which was directed by James Gunn. James Gunn directed The Suicide Squad 2021, starring Jai Courtney, albeit briefly. And Jai Courtney was in Unbroken, starring Finn Whitrock. And I got there all by myself.
That was amazing. I loved that. That was great. I really loved that. And I loved that you didn't go... I did use the easy way. I know, everybody, I try not to use the easy way, but I did for this one, I will admit. But I loved that. That was great. And I love hearing from people, because we have our own Finn crew. So we have a crew of people that, we all celebrate Finn Whitrock. We do Finn Whitrock trivia during October for his birthday. It's our most unhinged night of trivia because I run the board and it's just bloopers galore, but it's a ton of fun. So, I always think it's interesting when people do come on and they go, I don't even know who this is. And then they look and they're like, oh yeah, I know who this is. So I love that. There is 1 degree that you could use, and that's Lady Gaga. And I decided also to use it because if people don't know Tristan from American Horror Story Hotel is my absolute favorite Finn Wittrock character from the American Horror Story universe. And the only couple that I ever ship on American Horror Story universe is Finn Wittrock's character Tristan and Liz. So Tristan and Liz are the only couple that I ship ever in that whole universe. So there you go. And plus Lady Gaga was a vampire in American Horror Story Hotel. And so she was a lot of fun, even though she did, spoilers, she kills Tristan. She turns him and then she kills him. She slashes his throat very viciously. But I still love her and I still forgive her for doing that.
We forgive Lady Gaga many of her transgressions.
Yeah. But I do usually try to encourage people not to use Ryan Murphy in this game because that's the easiest way is Ryan Murphy. And so I try to encourage people not to, but I do it all the time and other people do it. But it's always interesting when you cannot do that. And especially when you're using something that you might not always use. So thank you, Ashleigh, for that. I really appreciate that you took that quote unquote harder way of doing it. So thank you so much.
I had a look on it after I did the little easy thing after I'd done it. And I was like, oh, is there another way of going around? And apparently Laura Jane Grace had like a bit part in a TV show, like a one-off appearance, which I had never heard of. So I was like, well, I wouldn't have got it that way anyway. It wouldn't have felt appropriate to do it that way.
But that's cool that there would have been other ways to do it. So
yeah, well, it said like you can reformulate it. You click it and it's like showing you a different way of doing it. And it really just show you how, how connected it all is. It's pretty interesting.
It is. It's really actually, as much as people may not know who Finn Wittrock is, it's really easy to connect him to people. Like it can take like that amount of time sometimes. So yeah. It's not maybe at the level of Kevin Bacon, but
yeah, not quite as ubiquitous. One day, they're always saying that Finn Wittrock is the next Kevin Bacon. Or saying,
yeah. And if that does happen, you have us to thank for that, Finn.
Yeah, that's a cold shot. One day, I'll be vindicated.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Ashleigh, for joining me on this episode. I had so much fun recording this one and also learning about a couple of songs that I wasn't aware of. So thank you so much for joining me. So if you want to let everybody know where they can find you on ZARD Radio.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Erin. Yeah, I'm between social media at the moment, trying to get off of Twitter. So at the minute, the best place to find me is on ZARD Radio. I'm live 9 p.m. on Saturday. That's UK time, so it's whatever time zone is going to be where you are. And I talk about international relations, current affairs, news, that kind of thing. So if you just go to wizardradio.com and just go right to the top, listen live, bam, I'm right there.
Awesome, thank you. And I will include a link in the show notes as well, so people can easily find you. And, Fergie, she really hates it, the dog. She hates it when I'm playing music and sing to her and make her dance with me. So she's not necessarily a fan of when I prep for the music episodes. She much prefers when I'm prepping for Horror Month because she loves watching horror movies, loves watching Abbott Elementary, and loves watching true crime. When we leave the house, instead of leaving on doggy shows, we leave on Dateline. And, you may think I'm joking about her watching TV, like intently watching TV, everybody, but she does. I have videos of her watching Insidious with such intensity that it's almost scary. Like you think she's planning something or something like that. But she does. She loves it. I don't know what it is about horror that appeals to her, but hey, she's just like me. So you got to love it. But you can follow her on TikTok and watch some of the videos of her watching television at Schroeder and Fergs. That's SCHROEDERANDFERGS. It's long, but it's worth it. To find all our past episodes, including some of the episodes that I mentioned today, and also to become a Patreon supporter to get great bonus content, access to episodes early. Sometimes you win prizes, all for as little as $3 a month. Head on over to our website, it'safandomthingpod.com. And there you will find various links to different categories as well of our episodes. And if you click the Support Us tab, that's where you'll find our Patreon. And you will also find links to our Redbubble store, which, if you are a Finn Whitrock fan, you can get merch that says it's a Fandom thing. I love the laugh there.
I say nothing.
Go ahead.
I say nothing about the phrasing of that.
You can also find It's a Snail Thing, which is in reference to the snail propaganda movie that Finn Whitrock did called Deep Water. Yes, that is a snail propaganda movie. And of course, we have lots of other things there as well. It's a fanfic thing. It's a Dean thing. It's a Destiel thing. One for Doctor Who. And I'm not going to butcher it because Erin A will want to smack me if I butcher it. It's a horror thing. You can find that there too. So lots of goodies over there. And next week, we are continuing talking about music. And none of their songs made our lists. So apologies to my guests that are going to be on that episode. But we are going to be talking about Tegan and Sarah, and we're going to be talking about that group with the hosts of Talk Like a Teen podcast. That's how they met, was because of their love of Tegan and Sarah. And I also wanted to talk about them because of the documentary on Hulu about their fandom and about how there was a lot of, I don't know if you heard about that, there was somebody in there catfishing people in their fandom and pretending to be members of the band and striking up relationships with them and stuff.
Oh.
So yeah, it's really, really kind of freaky because they were known for being very open with their fandom. And it's kind of one of those bad sides of that. So that'll be fun. And then of course, we're going to round out talking about Queer as Folk. And we are talking about season 2, and it's going to be a 2-parter. And hopefully Ken will be there. So everybody knows he thinks I curse him every year because he has technical issues every time, and he thinks it's my fault. So hopefully he won't have technical issues, and he'll be joining hopefully with Ishelle, and then also Eric from the Great Pop Culture Debate. So until next time, remember, it's a fandom thing. Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate, and free Palestine.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.